Hi, welcome to UK Public Procurement Post-Brexit Talk. I am Baachu and I will be running you through this 20 to 30 minute overview of what's been happening post-Brexit, or what happened in the past 15 months that we need to be made aware of so that we could plan our public procurement tenders accordingly. So before I get into who am I and what's Baachu, I'm Chief Exec of Baachu. We are trusted advisors to many of the leading government suppliers, and we specialize in all forms of government procurement and all forms of business winning in particular. So small team, but we work deeper both within the public sector and with the strategic suppliers. With that note, Baachu is also an ecosystem. So you might be knowing us in different forms because we have a small tech version. And part of Baachu together, we run 3 podcasts. You might have heard one of our podcasts, or you could be a member of the largest business winning community in the world, Baachu Scribble, which also holds 250 hours of learning content, or you could be a member or our consulting partner or client for Baachu Rain, which is our research portal specializing in facilities management sector. Whoever you are, even if you're new or old, I just welcome you to this snapshot of the public sector overview post-Brexit. So let me begin. So what happened here is something interesting. This talk, I'm going to cover the GPA, what happened in Find a Tender, and also the green paper. I'm neither a lawyer, even though I have my GTL, and I'm also a chartered accountant. I've been in the public sector, either bidding or advising clients for over 15 years. So don't take any legal advice from me because I'm not going to give you any legal advice. But what I thought I'll give you is there's a lot of talk of things happening, things changing, things staying the same. But let's just go through what they are. Either way, we are out of Europe. So what that means is we are going to enter or become part of the GPA. It currently has 20 members and UK will be number 21. And what we need to be aware of GPA is it's just a lighter coverage of the services. And it also helps us to also simplify or to have something basic to start with, and we can build the foundations from there. So there are more scope to use negotiated procedures. As you know, in UK, we have multiple forms of procedures. And there is also not much detailed rules, as it mentions, on procurements of contracts or modification to procurements of contracts. Either way, it's plurilateral, as it says, non-obligatory World Trading Organization agreement, which helps us to go with that. But the only caveat there is it also enables the other members, the 20 other members, to also be part of the UK public procurement. In principle, this is GPA. I'm sure there are a lot more legal related information on GPA, but what do we need to go for? We are going to be, the important point here is we are going to be part of GPA. A GPA gives us a framework to work with, and it has the basic structure of the procedures. It also gives us some remedies, but everything else will be built on that, which is what UK government has already done with the launch of the green paper, because this is by far the most important move that our civil servants and our procurement leaders have done in the past 15 months. The green paper, as it says, set to speed and simplify the current European Union driven public procurement processes. So the important point here is, as you might be aware, the value for money agenda is now big, which will continue to be big, and also bringing in the small businesses and the voluntary sectors inside the public sector spend. £1 allocated to SMEs. Out of every £3, there is even a bigger push to make further £1 to be allocated for voluntary community social enterprises, which makes it 2/3 of the close to 300+ billion spend should be allocated to SMEs and VCSEs. That's the overall framework or the thought process UK government has while structuring this. And the principles have been given beautifully in the green paper. There is links provided. We have a summary version of green paper, but let me run through some of the elements of green paper. The core principles listed in the green paper follows under these 7 principles. Number 1, value for money. Number 2, the public good. Number 3, transparency, integrity, efficiency, fair treatment of suppliers, and non-discrimination. these are the building blocks, the core principles with which the framework will be constructed, and we have to yet to see how the whole principles will be actually coming out as legislations for us to follow. But the most important point here is there will be a new unit that will oversee the public procurement with powers to review and, if necessary, intervene and to improve the commercial capability of contracting authorities. I know, and most probably you know, who will be running this new overseeing of public procurement, but let's just leave it to the Cabinet Office and let's just leave it to the UK government to officially announce who this agency is going to be. So as we talked about, there are 7 core principles, but moving on, as you mentioned, the most important issue that was raised with the EU-driven or the OJU-driven public procurement was it's cumbersome, it's complex. So at very simple, as you see, it needs to simplify and it needs to provide more access to the wider supply chains. What UK government has done, they simply have slashed 350 plus regulations governing public procurement and integrating these current legislations into single uniform framework. We'll cover some of the 3 new procurement routes. They have simplified into 3 new procurement routes. Number 1 is an open procedure. Then the next one is a new competitive flexible procedure. And the third one is a limited procedure. Either way, you might know today we have multiple forms of procedures, and every single procedure has its different forms: negotiated procedure, competitive dialogues, closed procedures, open procedures, with certain criteria, etc. But in the future, or in the coming months, we're going to see only 3 procurement routes, and even the 3 procurement routes, it's actually going to be only 2, because the limited procedure is only at times of crisis to justify what is going to happen. Say today we are in COVID crisis, so most of the principles that are going direct awards, as we currently see, will fall under this category. But outside that, there is only going to be 2, which is going to be open procedure, where customers can simply buy off-the-shelf products. You have the dynamic purchasing system, click and buy products. Unfortunately, there are some services which are being part of dynamic procurement service, DPS. As you clearly see, there is a new DPS plus dynamic purchasing system that's been created or a plan to create DPS plus, which means you will have more commoditized products and services being part of that, where buyers can do off the shelf. If you're a smaller provider like G Cloud, or if you're any kind of a smaller provider, then it's much easier for you to enter to be part of the buyer, because you might not need to go through tender process. But that's the open procedure. We just need to wait and see how this is going to come to. The next one is the new competitive flexible procedure. As the word says, is competitive flexible procedures. What that means is it gives the buyers the freedom to negotiate and innovate to get the best from the private, charity, and social enterprise sector. This is where it gets interesting, where you would find in the next slide the most economically advantageous tender, that E word is being removed, and now we only have MAT. That gives the buyers to procure better services, not just to focus only on price. But we have to yet to see. As you clearly see, there are 3 procedures going forward: not yet complex, commoditized one with open procedure, a strict one, lower limited procedures for emergency situations, and then you have 1 procedure which is new competitive flexible procedures. The buyers can pick and choose how they can do this. And in addition to that, frameworks will continue to exist, and the frameworks will be 2 forms. One is going to be open and the other one is going to be closed. So you'll see Crown Commercial Services frameworks or being the core part of that. So you will be seeing those frameworks coming through this one. And DPS is also part of Crown Commercial Services, and you can see how that would be connected to the open procedures and so on. So that's the high level one. Suppose there used to be light touch regime. If you are a procurement lawyer or a solicitor, you might know a lot more about this. But if you are a bidder or if you're part of an SCB, you don't need to worry about it. That's been removed now. So that's about it. And most important thing is NHS healthcare services is currently out of scope, part of green paper. That's important to note. Was a COVID crisis, lots of stuff is happening, plus and minus, positive stories and some negative stories coming out. But for now, NHS services, healthcare services has been out of the scope. What happens here? There's a standardized selection stages. So people need to go through. So there is no ifs or buts. Everybody will go through this. As I mentioned, you will also have this important one. This is by far the most important one, which is you'll move away from the MEAT into MAT, which is most advantageous tender. That's what the industry was crying for a very long time. It's raised to the bottom. That's the reason I won't be bidding for in the public sector. After 10 years from the austerity era, now there is a positive spin, or it flips the 90 degrees on the other way side, and let's see how far this is going to go. And as you also touched, there will also be a single digital platform for supplier registration. What that means is this is going to be a super important. So you don't need to register every single time to tender for public sector. Hey, tell us about your company, your financial statements, your DUNS number, etc., etc. That supplier questionnaire with CCS runs in per cabinet office, most probably, where you just do it once and you can apply that to ever. That single digital platform for supplier registration means that you can just focus on answering the core responses rather than to keep filling this sort of thing. So what that means, the PQQ stages of the projects might become redundant soon. So that's always the case. So if you do a readiness check on this questionnaire, if you have this done, it kind of pre-qualifies into one. But depends on the buyer. But most probably the PQQ stage, where are you part of this? Answer where have you demonstrated, etc. Reference contracts might be slightly different per contract, but the basic core questions might more or less going to be sorted by this. I don't want to go into every single line and detail about this. We have written an article around it. It's on the same day, 15th of December. You could read it through over there. And in addition to that, you could also, I suggest, part of an article, you'll also get a detailed link to the green paper itself. But is this the only changes that's been done? No, there is also few things that you might need to go. Social value as a principle existed in the local government for the past 3 years or so. And many local councils were benefiting it, and scoring for social value goes from 10% all the way to 25%. Central government has got out of it slightly late, but it's still done. From the 1st of January, the social value model is applied. And you could find lots of interesting value models that the government publish, how to use it, how to evaluate it. It's available for whole central government contracts. It's something you might need to be aware of. But the most important point here is a minimum value of 10% is now being allocated for all the procurement and central government in addition to this. Let's not talk about green paper, Brexit and other things. This also will improve the chances of many local suppliers and also many corporate clients who are looking into that. But the caveat, biggest caveat with the social value thing, as you might know, is your corporate social sustainability, where you do lots of stuff, maybe low carbon, sustainable buildings, diversity policies, doing all the LGBT, all the great stuff that you do part of the corporate thing, will not be eligible for any of these scores. So you have to do it as a good Samaritan, as a good business, as a values-driven business. But this social value is marked by tender, which means you need to demonstrate social value by tender, you cannot showcase what you do overall for your business. We are, as a small business, even we are aligning ourselves to the United Nations Sustainable Goals. We have 4 goals that we believe in, and we have programs around it. But it doesn't mean when it comes to scoring of the social value for the particular bid that we are submitting, it will not be valid. So that's something which I want to raise, which most people might fall on the flip. But it's a values-driven business, continue to do it. But as a social value model, you need to plan it around for 10% to 25%. It's been there for a very long time, but from 1st of January, this also came live. The other important point, which is also we need to be aware of, is this threshold. Not all public procurements will be coming out in the tender, right? We'll come back to the actual journals of where this will be published, but you also need to understand the current threshold. The PPN, the procurement notices out there, it tells us for the supplier of services up to 122,976, and for the works it's 4 million. Those are the current thresholds that's set down by the government, which means those are the threshold below which the buyers can decide whether they want to go with they can procure services by location, or they could carve that as, you know what, this is not going to go to strategic suppliers or bigger players. I'm reserving this procurement for SMEs and VCSEs. So today you have this reservation that you cannot say this is illegal, this is not fair, etc. The buyers today can, for part of 1st of January, the threshold with which they can choose the buyers again have their own criteria about what threshold they could use, but this is what it's currently done for central government. So the central government bodies can use this threshold as a basis, but if you are not part of the central government, or if you're still part of central government, you can still set out your threshold by which you can allocate, as long as it's fair process, you could allocate, hey, you know what, I am, we are based in Croydon, for example, this spend is going to be allocated to all the Croydon suppliers only, or this spend is going to be allocated only for SMEs who have threshold below 50 million or 10 million. 50 million is even a bigger number, 5 million, 10 million, 25 million, whatever the number, or 1 million. So you can come up with this, and that's now is also possible. There is a lot more information is available in the link. If you click there, you can find how that 1/3 spend of SMEs, which was the government view previously, that, okay, we need allocated spend, but how are we going to allocate the spend? Most of the spend has been allocated to tech companies, right? And then it's not services. Services never managed to crack that 1 million, and also for charitable organizations, mainly for the welfare schemes and stuff that they were part of. So healthcare, welfare, social care, and tech companies, that's how that 1 million spend, or the £1 out of 3 spend, was kind of allocated to. But now there are mechanisms to have local procurements, and also mechanisms to allocate just to SME. So going forward, you will see more and more companies can look forward. And if you are an SME, please do keep an eye on the standard. Don't shy away that, oh my God, and there will be a lot of competition. Yes, that could be, but it could be just part of your local arena. So we talked about the principles of the green paper. We talked about high-level GPA, and we also talked about, hey, in addition to that, social values now real, totally real, and also the local supply chain, or buy local, is also becoming super real. So there's a new beginning, and there's a new way of working, and that obviously comes with a new portal. So the Find a Tender portal is now live as of 1st of January. My simple suggestion is, don't be too bogged down. The OJU will still exist to a certain extent, where any projects that's been there, the XML that Find a Tender uses still has OJU under as an XML. But to be on the safer side, please, please, please do find a tender, look for Find a Tender, look for Contracts Finder, and also look at OJUs directly. I'm not a big fan of paid trackers. So if you are using one of the paid trackers, ensure that your paid tracker provider, the notification service provider, covers Find a Tracker, covers all other portals as well, so that you are absolutely sure you're not missing anything. Just to be on the safer side, whoever you are, small, big, large scale provider, ensure that you also sign up to Find a Service directly, and you can also sign up to Contracts Finder directly, and if possible, also sign up to TED directly, right? Just to be on the safer side, because information could be published in all 3 ways. And as you know, these are early stages and people are going for that. In addition to that, what are the other key parts that you might need to tender? As you know, Find a Tender covers England. So you might need to look at the Public Contract Scotland, Sell to Wales, and also Northern Ireland portal. So those are the 5 links that you have. The links are there. Please do register yourself with those 5 links to ensure that you receive it. But if you are using any paid service, ensure that your paid service is tracking these opportunities, because buyers are actually learning to have their own procurement listed in the right places, like Find a Tender and other things. And providers and the trackers are also finding it, learning to get into this new way. Either way, we all will be in this learning curve. So the important point here is Find a Tender, Contracts Finder, plus if you are also looking for opportunities in Scotland, Northern Ireland, and Wales, please to use these channels and get yourself in place. So day 1 changes, we already touched, you know what, in most cases, the principles remains unchanged, but the green paper is going to be forming the basis. and OJU will now be gradually replaced into find a tender, and we have to see what journey that's going to go for. So this is my high-level summary. My high-level summary for what it's still early days. It's still early days. The point to mention here is the UK principles will be part of GPA. It covers from there, but it will be slightly more, and it will extend to implement what's written in the green paper. You will get a sense of direction. We have a basis, and we're going to use that basis. With the green paper, you have a sense of direction, and you're going to build it from there. That's the core principle I want to land. So please do familiarize yourself with principles of green paper. It's there in our link. You can have a look, familiarize yourself. And the second one is the procedures is going to be reduced. We already saw that there's only 3 procedures: the open, limited, and we have the negotiated one. So and the third one is, the brilliant or the most important one, industry will be relieved to hear, is the meat is being replaced to mat. So we have to see in tenders how this is going to come out with. And I also touched about social value, 10% central government is caught up with the local government now, and also the procurements are below threshold that they could use to procure by location or by SMEs and BCSEs. So those are the high-level principles I thought I'll cover. So there is also a session that we have with Martin Trainer, the Crown Rep from Cabinet Office, and also we also have Stephen Tockley, the Senior Policy Advisor at Cabinet Office, joining us. So we could ask specific questions about, now we know the what is so what, so what, how am I going to do anything? If you have any questions, and why are we doing this? Because the consultation for the green paper still continues. This is the time for you to understand the principles, regardless whether you're a solicitor or an SME or a strategic supplier, regardless of who you are, and ensure that your inputs are given in. We are in a new beginning. Government can only do what they can do. They are engaging with as many suppliers as possible. And we have a session about that. And then you can also join to benefit out of it. The most important point is, regardless, please do send your responses to procurement.reform at cabinetoffice.gov.uk, and then it's 10th of March. But you know what? I have no idea what you're talking about. I have no idea. And I just want to get some help. Regardless of whether you procure for public services already, or if you don't know public services, please do note down this number. Crown Commercial Services Help Desk should be your first point of contact to talk through about any questions related to public procurement. There is email there, there is a phone number there, and they will be of help as soon as they can to give you an insight about what's happening so that you can prepare yourself. So there is enough help, provided we ask for help. That's the message that I want to land. So that's it from me. Thank you for joining UK Procurement, an overview of the principles. And we'll discuss more about this with Martin Train and Stephen Tockley. And that won't be the last session. That's the beginning of multiple sessions that we'll be having with our government. So with that note, stay healthy, stay happy, stay sane, and I'll speak to you very soon. Signing off, Baachu Sundram. Take good care. Bye-bye.